Testing 1, 2, 3.
Testing 1, 2, and 3.
Okay, y'all. Hey, we're back for another episode of the Corazon Chronicles podcast.
Hola, hola, hola.
I'm excited because we are actually talking about a lot of stuff on this podcast. We're going to be talking about breakups, makeups, maybe some pop culture news related to relationships, and a little bit more. So thanks for tuning in.
Yes, thank you guys so much. It's crazy because I know we're going to read our first review for the podcast, right? We're going to get into that, and then we have some viewer requested questions, I guess.
Yeah, so first and foremost, if you haven't already done so, we'd love to invite you to review the show on Apple Podcasts, or if you listen on Spotify, because every review helps us get amazing listeners like you. So we want to read a review that we got. Super excited. Go ahead, babe.
All right, let me see here. Okay, so this is Apple Podcast, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is from Daphne, and it says, "This is the podcast I didn't know I needed. Wow, talk about God's timing. I'm going through some rough patches in my life, and it has been so eye-opening to understand that some things, particularly with our parents, are out of our control. This podcast has helped me put my own life and marriage into perspective. Toxic behavior generates toxicity in all aspects. Thanks for being real and keeping it real. I look forward to y'all's weekly episodes. Con mucho, mucho amor, from Walter Mercado." If you know, you know. And that's from Daphne.
We love the reference. And Daphne, thank you so much for the review. So
Hell
again,
yeah.
If you listen to us on an app that allows you to review, please leave us a review, share with your friends and family, anybody who you think would get some value out of the conversations that are happening on the show.
Yeah, I butchered that a little bit, but it's fine.
Oh, it's okay. Okay, so maybe let's start off with like the breaking couples news that's going on right now. So
that happened today, right?
It literally was announced today. It was broken by an exclusive piece by People magazine. Apparently, Rauw and Rosalia, which is pretty much like the it couple in Latin music right now, have called off their engagement.
I'm dead.
They have been together for 3 years, and there is no details about why they broke up. But I mean, if you want to talk about a power couple, like at least I thought they were the definition of it, right?
Right.
They are both amazing artists. They just recently came out with an EP where they collabed on music together. They have been unapologetic about their love for each other, and all of a sudden, that shit's a wrap.
Yeah, because I mean, how long ago did they just drop like a song together? I mean, it feels like it wasn't that long ago. They just dropped again, right?
So we're talking in July. They released their EP in March, and at the end of the video for their first song, which was Beso. So they just released an EP where they made 3 songs together, which was like such a big ass deal because everybody's waiting for this, right?
Yeah.
And at the end of their first music video for the song Beso, they revealed that they were engaged, which nobody knew about. So it's like y'all didn't just, do this collab, which everybody was talking about and was waiting for, but y'all announced you were getting married like 3-4 months ago.
All right. So do you think that this might have all been like an orchestrated, like Kardashian style relationship where it's like just to sell records and stuff? Because like, look at Benito right now. Like they're clearly, I mean, we've all seen the videos and stuff of them, at the game together. And I mean, come on, like it's very awkward. At least Rosalia and Rauw were very affectionate. It seemed real. It seemed real.
They have like each other's names tattooed on their body. That's not something you do for a publicity stunt. Like Rauw literally has Rosalia tattooed on his abdomen.
What do you think was, I mean, if you were to speculate, what would be the reason to out of nowhere pull the plug? You think infidelity?
I really don't see them as being the type. Like, he was so about her life. If you know the story of this couple, he talks all the time about how he like manifested the relationship with her.
Right.
Like, he's been obsessed with her since like 2018, and they ended up meeting, I want to say in 2020 at like some random event. And he said it was love at first sight.
Damn.
So he's like, I've been about this woman since I knew about her. Like, so I don't think it was from his side if there was any infidelity.
You think she's the one that could do it?
I mean, Rosalia's been posting some thirst traps on Instagram where she's like in her underwear and shit. And I'm just looking at the stuff like, if I had a man, I don't think he'd be okay with some of this content.
I mean, some people are okay,
Yeah, I guess celebrities can kind of get away with shit like that because, whatever, for likes or clicks. But I honestly think maybe they just realize that their careers are too poppin' to be like to have room for a relationship.
Yeah, but I mean, at the end of the day, like, they could have gone on a couples tour. That would have been fire. Like
Yeah.
to like go on a world tour of like everybody celebrate our engagement, celebrate our love. Like, obviously, the entire Latino community was like, I mean, everybody's kind of fucked up about it right now,
Yeah.
right? I mean, this kind of hurts. It kind of hits home a little
It
bit.
kind of feels like, yo, like maybe love doesn't exist. Maybe there's no hope for any of us.
No, that's not true. And all you guys out there listening, this is not true.
But it is kind of like that shit came out of nowhere. And, I was reading the People article. It's still, there's a lot of details that have not been revealed yet. But,
sure.
Their publicists haven't actually commented. They haven't actually acknowledged on their social media or any like official channel that they're broken up.
So I guess, I mean, somebody in somebody's camp.
Yeah.
Was like had the okay to let this shit out, because if not, they would have came out and been like, this is like not even real.
That's true.
So it's like for them to be quiet and stuff like that. I mean, somebody in somebody's camp was given the okay to let this shit out and do it in a certain way. Yeah. Everything's orchestrated. It's 2023. Like, that's why I was asking your thoughts on if you think that they were like an industry planted, couple, because I mean, that stuff happens all the time, especially on, these two young artists that are coming up in a relatively new space. It's not far-fetched to, for them to be like, hey, we're going to put these two people together. And
the only reason why I say that I don't think that that's the case here, whereas with Bad Bunny and the whole Kendall Jenner thing, I think that's absolutely a manufactured relationship. I don't know what the hell he's getting out of it, other than just like a lot of people kind of fucking canceling him.
That or like, I mean, I guess it's more exposure to like the white community, because she's got the white community on lock, and if they're trying to make reggaeton more widespread with like the white folks, I mean that's the move.
At Coachella, right? Like that's like the whitest shit you can go to.
if you think about like the 12-year-olds that are out there, like if we had like a 12-year-old daughter and she knew all about the Kardashians and the Skims and all that stuff, and then she's like, I didn't even know this Bad Bunny dude existed, and then like I started listening to his music and it sounds really good. Like it's like this is a new form of of hip hop or something. So
not for nothing, but I feel like Bad Bunny doesn't really need anybody, other groups' validations. But getting back to, do I think that Rosalia and Rauw are a plant? I don't, because he's actually talked about that. Like they've actually asked them, why did you guys keep your relationship under wraps for so long? Because they didn't come out for almost like 2 years that they were public, right? And so his thing was, he didn't want the relationship to eclipse their individual identities as artists.
I remember you saying this. So he wanted them,
to like, they get the respect as individuals in the game, and then eventually they will collab. And that's why they took a while to actually come out with joint music, because they just didn't want to be associated with like, oh, that's Rauw's, girlfriend, or that's Rosalia's man. They wanted to just make their own name.
Be unique, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think it sucks, because honestly, they were definitely like one of my favorite couples in the Latin music industry. They just felt so genuine. For sure. It just felt like they were really in love. They were really about each other. They always spoke highly of each other. And from the People magazine source, I mean, they said it was a mutual decision.
Sure.
So I think it maybe is honestly like just professional conflict, or just like not the right time, or, maybe they just found that in working together, they have like fundamental differences in like their vision of what they want or whatever. But I guess we'll find out more as like more news comes out.
Yeah, R.I.P. to that relationship, because that was fun to kind of watch and stuff like that. But I guess all good things come to an end.
I guess so. And I mean, it's nice to not see like some drama associated with the breakup versus like an Anuel, Karol G type shit where like they're talking shit about each other and like. He's
sneak dissing.
Around. Yeah, it's not cute. We don't need like diss tracks from Rauw and Rosalia. Like nobody needs that.
Okay. He's so funny.
So I think this is a good segue for us to talk about like, how do you know it's time to move on, right? Because we actually got a listener question in our Instagram DMs about like, how do you know it's time to move on versus like, I should keep fighting for this.
And I guess they were in a relationship currently, right?
Yeah. So it sounds like she's actually thinking about making the move towards divorce.
Oh,
and
my
she's
God.
kind of trying to figure out like, how do you know that the time is right?
Well, I think that, I mean, there's several different angles of, when it's time. Obviously the physical connection and stuff like that, if that's not there, you know, if you're not attracted to each other, you know, if there's a lack of intimacy and all of that stuff, obviously I think that's number one, first and foremost, right? And then the other thing too is, like you said, I mean, people change over time, and people, they change as far as what they want out of life and like the direction they want to go. And, you know, sometimes people find their passion later in life too, you know? So, how do you know when it's time? I just think that if, if you're putting in effort and you're not seeing it reciprocated in any way, I think that maybe you should start to look at the fact that maybe you're in that relationship alone. You know, and when you're in a relationship alone and you're carrying the weight for both you and them, and they're relying on that, or they're just kind of like taking that for granted and they're not putting in the effort, then I think it's time to move on. You know, as painful as that might be, and I know you touched on it a little bit in a previous episode, but you said also, you know, people being together, you know, for monetary reasons, because, you know, maybe the you know, one person has a developed career and the other person was just kind of like supporting them the entire time, and all of a sudden, you know, they're at this crossroads where it's like, well, I can't just fuck off and uproot, because what am I supposed to do? Go like bag groceries? Like, I don't really know.
So. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of different, you know, obviously everybody's situation is different and no two relationships are the same. So it's hard to, you know, have a blanket answer. But, you know, the thing for us, both of our last breakups were like our hands were kind of forced by external events that were just like, my immediate emotional and or physical safety is in jeopardy by staying in this relationship, right? So I think we were both kind of pushed out because it's like, yo, I can't fucking be here. Like, this is not safe. Like, fundamentally,
this is not going to end up good.
Yeah. And so, you know, when you have that type of situation, I think it's much easier to like figure out, okay, this shit's done.
Right.
Versus a lot of relationships, I think, will die like, you know, the death by 1,000 cuts analogy, where it's just shit piles up. You know, there's resentment that builds, and you eventually get to a place where like there's just been so much hurt that you're like, this shit's not repairable, right? And I think that's the harder decision to make, because it's not necessarily one thing,
right? It's
a lot of things that have piled up.
Yeah.
So interestingly, I saw this post on Instagram where they were interviewing a divorce attorney, and he made an interesting point, which I would love to get your take on, and you think to see if like you think this is accurate.
Okay.
So he said that women, when they decide to get divorced, have mentally come to that decision months or even potentially like years before they actually execute on that.
Sure.
Because they're like women are calculated.
Yeah.
We're very much like assessing the whole situation. What are the pros and cons? Have I really given all my effort? Like we check out mentally way before we check out physically.
Sure.
And I definitely had that experience. Like I knew I needed to get divorced in May of 2021, but I didn't file until August of 2022.
Sure.
So it was like over a year that I'm like, fuck, it's not gonna work. But like
stringing
but you're kind of like waiting for some shit to pop off to like justify it. And I think that was my whole thing. Whereas men, when they're filing for divorce, it's usually because they've met someone else. And it's not a prolonged thing. It's just like, this phase of my life is over and I'm going to just move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
So essentially women leave for themselves, whereas men leave for someone else.
Sure.
Do you agree? Like, do you think that men do operate in that way typically?
I guess I can definitely see that. I think everything's relative, so it's tough. But yeah, I definitely can see men being the ones to do that. And also, you know, men are usually the ones who will cheat to get out of a relationship too. So they're going to use somebody else, you know, as a distraction.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's happening with that. You know, does that relationship work out? Maybe not all the time, right? But I know that there are some cases out there where it's like, hey, you know, it was fucked up. I had to get divorced because I met this new person and we're still together after, you know, 30 years and God's crazy, but that's what happened. So anyways, men, you know, leaving for something new, I definitely see that happening, you know, because men are wired differently. You know, we're put on this planet to reproduce, right? Like that's pretty much our only, that's literally it. And it gets very primal with some folks. So, you know, that's why you hear the whole trade out the late model for the new one and all that stuff. Gross. So, and men are, you know, their biological clock and stuff is different, so they're able to kind of like restart several times in life. Honestly, if you look at it, I mean, a man can reinvent himself. I mean, he can just move to a new town and, you know, I mean, we see the true crime shows all the time, right? This guy's like had like four or five different lives. It's like insane. But a woman, I think it's just, you know, they're inherent to kind of stick it out and stuff too. So it's hard for a woman to develop a whole ass relationship on the side and then like want to leave to be with that. It's just tough, you know.
Why do you think men cheat more often than women? Do you even think that is actually like factual, or do you think it kind of is 50-50? I mean, obviously we don't have statistics and data, but like I just know the majority of the stories anecdotally that I've heard from my friend group is always the fucking guys.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it's that. Yeah, I think that it's happening a lot more evenly than we're aware of.
Think women are better at like hiding shit and keeping them in the ground.
Maybe, but now in today's society with, you know, social media and dating apps and everything, it's just a lot more socially acceptable to be promiscuous and to be able to like, you know, have multiple partners and stuff. It's acceptable, you know, it's all that stuff. So yeah. I think that women are cheating just as much as men. And I think that it's easier for women to cheat because they're sought after by men, right? So like it's easy for a woman to like fuck her coworker as long as she just acknowledges his advances, right? But as far as like for a man, you know, they have to kind of gauge it a little bit differently, and they have to kind of like test the waters and fish a little bit and kind of see like, you know, I don't know if this chick like is willing to step out on her husband, and I don't know if she's cool knowing the fact that I'm in a whole ass relationship. And eventually people get it figured out, right? And all of a sudden they're like, I have a husband, you have a wife, but we're coworkers and we're going to do this thing.
Yeah, and I think the thing with cheating in general for men versus women, you know, I think for men sometimes it's just like you just can't control your fucking drive or whatever it is, right? Some men just have like a wandering eye and it is what it is, and they've kind of accepted that that's who they are as people.
Yeah, it just is what it is. Yeah.
Whereas I feel like women typically cheat because they are being emotionally neglected in some way, shape, or form, right? It's just like your shit has piled up again with the partner, and there's either a loss of like sexual desire, maybe there's like a loss of trust, maybe, you know, there's a combination of things. But I think when women cheat, it's way more because the emotional neglect versus like, oh, we're just horny, we're just gonna fucking jump on anybody.
Yeah, I was just talking to my buddy Rich today, and we were talking about his previous relationship. And I told him that I had saw her on Hinge, like right around the time I had, you know, met you, and I saw her on there, and I was like, oh, okay, you know, that's Rich's ex. So we're talking about, you know, the demise of that relationship and whatever happened, and he's like, man, he's like, I felt a disconnect, and he's like, I went through her phone while she was like in the shower or something, and he's like, she had all the apps, she had the Bumble, she had the Hinge, and he's like, I went through I went through all of it and went through the messages and stuff. And he's like, at the end of the day, you know, I don't know if she was cheating or whatever. He's like, but she was just out here looking for, you know, attention and emotional connection that I was just done giving her, you know. And when we were all hanging out, you know, you could just tell, even like he and I would have personal conversations, and he'd be like, man, this isn't going to work out. You know, we're wasting our time, I guess, or whatever. And it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. He wasn't financially in a space where he could just jump out and get an $1,800 a month apartment and stuff like that. So, but yeah, it's crazy.
Dang. Okay. Well,
I feel like cheating is a lot easier now than it was back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just accessibility. You can meet people very easily, right? Versus like back in the day, you got to go out and be in the world. You can just have emotional affairs with folks on apps that you never met. I mean, there's just so much access. And I think there's also just like this pervasive mentality with a lot of people who are dating that there's always something better. Or, you know, you don't want to lock yourself down because like, what if? Yeah. So I think that's part of what I've seen as the frustration of a lot of my single friends is this idea that like nobody wants to commit because there's this underlying idea of like, well, what if I find something better?
And that's a sticky situation too, because I feel like that's coming from someone who knows themselves enough to understand that they have like a wandering eye, and they have already adopted the whole there's always going to be somebody else thing.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I think that's like a weird form of like self-preservation. But what they're doing when they do that is they're preventing themselves from being able to fully invest into a person. And so like they always have like this permanent wall up, and they're never gonna, even though they're justifying it to themselves, like, oh, I'm doing this because like I'm holding out for the right person and stuff. They're just going to go through life never finding the right person, even if they had the right person a couple of different times with different people. They're just so turned off inherently without even knowing it, and like the whole time they're out here spreading this word to these people that they're tricking these people to fall in love with them, promising them a future, and because that might genuinely be what that person wants eventually.
Yeah.
But it's never with that person. So they're just going through life, wasting people's time and creating havoc and trauma for no reason. You got these women out here, and you have a friend that's kind of in a similar situation, and shout out to her. She knows who she is, and definitely thinking about you, because it's a very tough situation. But you know, there are people out here that promise the world and promise that they're available and that they're ready, and they get these people sold on this dream, and they feel like they won the lottery, and then once everything starts to kind of come crashing down, and it's like, all right,
it's too real.
Let's actually do this thing, and then all of a sudden he's like, well, they're like, damn it, I didn't actually mean for it to get this far.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And, you know, going back to the listener question around, like, you know, when do you know it's time? I think what you mentioned earlier is completely accurate. And I would agree that there has to be like reciprocal effort on both sides to fix shit. It can't just be that you're like doing all the lifting. You're the one that's like, hey, let's go to therapy. Let's go to couples counseling. Let's go to church.
Be the only one who's like, hey, let's go out on dates. Like, be the only one who's like getting flowers or cooking dinner randomly, whatever, the way you show affection. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's 100% true. Like, there has to be equal effort on repairing the damage that was done. There has to be accountability if hurt has been done. You just gotta be putting in the work on both sides. And if you are just consistently the one that is trying to fix shit, that is just, you know, has the drive, but you don't see that from the other person, then I think that's the ultimate way that, you know, like, this shit's done, you know. Yeah. My effort is not worth it, and it's better used somewhere else.
Yes. And I think that it's okay to be selfish in those situations, because what you're doing, you're talking about your own time, your own lifetime, the time of your life. Like, every second that goes by is your time. And what
it's not coming back.
Yeah. And what you choose to do with that time is what you choose to do with it. So if you want to live in this tumultuous situation and stuff, that's fine. That's your time. But, you know, be selfish with your time. It's okay. Especially if you're second guessing something that you're in, or something that you're trying to build with somebody. If you're trying to second guess it, you need to A, have a conversation with yourself. B, you owe it to yourself and that person to have a conversation with them and get all the cards on the table, because you don't want to blindside them and be like, I'm fucking done. And they're like, well, why? We didn't even talk about this.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah. Okay. So before we move on to the second listener question, I have one more question related to kind of to what we're talking about. So, you know, there's this common saying, once a cheater, always a cheater. Do you believe that? Or do you think that, you know, somebody can make a mistake once in a relationship and like be remediated through whatever means to never be that person again?
I think that there are serial cheaters, and I think that they know how to cheat, and they are very, very premeditated on that stuff, right? So they know how to move in all aspects, and they also, you know, they're really good at telling people what they want to hear and stuff like that. So
talk a little bit louder.
Sorry. Yeah. So, you know, with some people, I feel like they cheat, you know, to get out of a relationship, stuff like that. So maybe that person's not always a cheater, but it's tough. You know, I mean, it's like saying, you know, once a thief, always a thief. And I kind of see that, you know, because like, once someone shows that they have the character to do something flaw like that, which is show that they don't have the integrity, because integrity is everything. Do the right thing when no one's looking. Yeah. And so if that's the case, then I think once a cheater, always a cheater, and that doesn't mean that they're going to actively cheat, but the fact that they've done it, they know what it feels like, they know what it takes, they know what it does to people, and how to maneuver. They're okay with dealing with that guilt. I think that yeah, I think that no matter what, if you've cheated before, I think I'm always have my eye on you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have to say, I know some friends of mine out there who have been the side chick.
Oh.
And, it's never led to a fruitful relationship.
No.
So I think,
God.
Coming from that side where, like, if you are the person that is cheating with that individual, don't be surprised when that shit happens to you. Because you literally started a relationship based on deception and dishonesty. And I just don't think, like, you can have good karma in a relationship when, like, that's how shit starts.
Yeah, and I mean, nobody wants to be a homewrecker. If the man...
I mean, some people do. They don't give a fuck. But then it's like, this is why you're perpetually, like, in bullshit and drama.
Yeah, some people like that shit.
Yeah, I think so. Some people love the novela drama. It's like they get addicted to the toxicity of, like, the secrets and the lies and fucking sneaking around. And, like, honestly, yeah, cool. If that's how you want to live your life. But for me, I'm like, that's like a waste of fucking time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so the second listener question that we had from our Instagram, and it just in case you guys don't know, yes, you can absolutely send us messages on the DMs at Corazon Chronicles Pod, and you can send us an email at corazonchroniclespodcast@gmail.com, and we'd be happy to answer your question on the show.
Hell yeah.
So the second question that we got was from a listener who is in a long-distance relationship. So her partner actually lives in another country, not even just like another state.
Oh, shit.
And her question was like, are long distance relationships worth it? Like, can they work?
Jeez, well, damn, these people are asking questions that is like very relative to their scenario, So it's hard to like just group it up into like one explanation because everything's so relative.
Well, have you had a long distance relationship ever?
No, well, I did for like a couple of months when I relocated after I graduated high school.
Yeah.
But that wasn't ever like, no.
So that was like a high school girlfriend that y'all were trying to see if you could work it out while you both like established yourselves in different places, or?
No, I ended up moving. I ended up moving and relocating down here. And we had been together for like 2 years.
Yeah.
So it was like high school puppy love thing. And it just wasn't going to work. We're both young. Like there was no way that I was going to be faithful to her. And there's just no way she was going to be faithful to me. And just no way. Right. I mean, it's just not going to happen. So, but a long distance relationship, is it worth it? I think that it absolutely can be worth it. Everybody deserves love and everybody finds love in their own unique way and unique places. So I think that, it goes back to what I just said about your own time. Mm-hmm. If you are enjoying yourself, if you are waking up every day and you're uplifted and you got a little glow about you because you're talking to somebody and you've got someone in your corner that you feel like really cares about you and stuff. I mean, who cares if they're 7,000 miles away?
Yeah.
I think that it could definitely work. It's just going to take a lot of effort. We've seen it on the 90-day fiancés and all this stuff. The distance, it can be very, very tough and it can get kind of toxic. And it can kind of consume your life because you want to spend all your time with this person. And next thing you know, like you're not going out with your friends or living your own life because you're stuck at the house on FaceTime or whatever, Mm-hmm. And so I think that if you're getting fulfillment and true happiness out of it, and you think that that person is genuinely in love with you, and you think that eventually you guys aren't going to be long distance, then I would do it. But other than like, as far as like having a long distance relationship just to have somebody to talk to or like a fling, I don't know if that's actually conducive.
Yeah. So I had a long distance relationship in college. I was dating someone who was in the military and they were deployed. So we met like in person, locally, but then he ended up having to go off to do his tour duties, whatever. And I think in the beginning was fine, right? Like they do say the absence makes the heart grow fonder, sure. Where like, when you're not together all the time, when you do see each other, like you're really excited about it, you make quality time.
Right.
But I think what happened over time was the biggest issue, which I think most long distance couples face, is like the lack of trust.
Yeah, that's
right. It's like, oh, what are you doing? Where are you at? Maybe the phone call frequency stops being as routine. Maybe the text stop. Mm-hmm. Shit just popping off. And at the end of the day, like I think you have to have even more effort to maintain that connection.
Yeah,
because of the distance.
That's what I mean. Like that's what I mean. It's gonna take. I feel like a lot more work.
Yeah.
there's certain things that you can. There's just certain things that happen when you're in the room with somebody, the body energy and just the vibes and everything in general. It's like you need to be able to sit across from somebody at the table and like watch their face reactions and how their body moves and everything while they're talking to you. Like all the time when you're talking to me, I'm just like looking at you. I'm just like, man, look at, so.
I think it is, though, easier to maintain that connection now with technology, right? Because my parents were actually long distance when my dad was in the military and my mom was writing letters to him on the Navy ship.
And see, that's like...
Right? Yeah. That's some fucking, like, the Notebook type shit.
I bet you they still have the letters.
Oh, they do. My mom has a whole little... I have to get it. It's in Puerto Rico in my grandmother's house, but it's like all the love letters and stuff.
Damn, you need to laminate all that stuff.
I do. But think about, like how intentional they had to be to maintain that connection because they literally could not see each other for 6 months at a time.
Yeah.
Versus now, all you got to do is hop on FaceTime or WhatsApp or whatever, and you can make that connection as much as possible,
right.
While you guys are kind of waiting to see each other. But, I just think it really, you got to have the effort coming from both sides. You really have to be intentional about making the most of your time when you're together.
Yeah.
And y'all, like, you just got to nurture that shit, like, even harder than you would in person.
Yeah. So you have a friend that was doing this long distance thing, right? Or trying to kind of cultivate a relationship with somebody who is outside of the country.
Yeah.
And they would, I guess the communication and stuff, better than I do about the ins and outs, but I'll kind of just do my own third party gloss over. But it seems like, that they had really good communication and the connection and stuff was there. They were obviously talking and stuff. And then when it came down to, her traveling to go see him and like make time and spend money and resources to come and see him and stuff, he would kind of give her the runaround a little bit.
It was very one-sided too. Like she was the one making the effort to always go and see this person.
Yeah, he never came here, right?
Never bought her a plane ticket. Like, fine, he would take her out when she was there and stuff. But it's like, you're really making a lot of effort to see this person versus them kind of meeting you halfway and saying like, hey, this month I'm going to come here. Next month you'll go there, blah, blah, blah. It just felt like very one-sided from that amount of effort.
I agree. I mean, I was very new to the whole situation. And then to hear how it kind of has crumbled and ended a little bit is it's tough because, she put in a lot of effort and she was very genuine with it, and she treated him a lot better than he treated her. So
yeah. And it's one of those situations where like, I think their connection was really hot together when they're physically in the same proximity as each other. Yeah. But as soon as that distance happens, it's like he forgets about that. Right. And then she's the one kind of trying to reconnect that and fan that flame and stuff. And it's just like, nah, like you both have to be 100% about it or it's not even worth it.
Yeah, I feel like from a man's perspective, I just think that, if he was one of my friends and I saw like how he was acting with her and stuff like that, I would just be like, bro, like, are you really into this chick or not? Because it's kind of like seeming like you're not really into her too much and you're just like kind of hitting her up when it's convenient for you and like on some, you just want to fuck her kind of thing. And that's just very disrespectful, especially with like her message and what she was trying to get done. It was kind of disrespectful to treat her that way. So
yeah, relationships are complicated, y'all. And, at the end of the day, I think the blanket advice that we can give you, whether you're navigating, tough moments in your relationship, long distance relationship, whatever, that crossroads, you have to really be honest with yourself about like, what are you doing versus what is this person doing? Is there equal effort? Are both people committed? Yeah. Like, are you being accountable for your shit that maybe has led to things? Is that person being accountable? Is there open communication? Is there a desire to resolve shit?
Right.
And if those things are not there, then you got to be honest with yourself about what the hell the potential is about the future.
Yeah. Especially if you are living life with a purpose, meaning if you have an agenda, if you're out here looking to be someone's partner in life and you're looking to build a life with somebody and start a family and stuff, and you have an actual agenda for how you want things, or not even want, you need things to work out this way for you. So that way you have purpose and fulfillment in your own life.
Yeah.
Man, I think that I would just be very, very guarded. But it's like when you're like that and you're like moving on this biological clock and like your body's kind of just taking over a little bit, and your inhibitions are gone, right? So like you're just kind of like focused. It's like a guy thinking with his dick only, right? Oh, I'm just thinking about that. All of a sudden, it's like, oh, I can't believe I, did that, know. So I think that it's easy for people to get clouded because they're on this mission, and they can sugarcoat things for themselves. They can accept things, and settle is basically what I'm saying. And it sucks to see people settle. But that's what they want to do. So it's their life. It's their time, right? So
it is. And that's the one thing you don't get back, y'all. So, if you just got to keep it real with yourself and learn how to cut your losses. And I think this is a great opportunity for us to let y'all know about a brand new sponsor that we have for the show.
Oh, shit.
Because if you're navigating relationship drama, or you just actually want to work on yourself to be a better partner, and to just like start cultivating self-love, whatever the heck it is. We have partnered with BetterHelp to get you 10% off your first month if you use our code.
Hell yeah.
So all you have to do is head over to betterhelp.com/corazon to get 10% off your first month. And the thing that I love about BetterHelp, and I've actually personally used them for different life transitions, including, my divorce and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Is you can access therapy from anywhere, right? So it's not like you got to go into an office at a specific time. Like this, your therapist is matched with you based on what you want to work on.
Yeah.
You are able to talk to them via text, video calls, regular phone calls, whatever way makes sense for you. And it really is a lot more financially accessible than like traditional therapy.
And you can pick and choose your therapist as well, right?
Yeah.
So like you can kind of go through there, maybe I know me personally with my therapist, I went through a few therapists. I thought being a guy, I wanted to talk to a guy. I learned pretty quick that wasn't really what I wanted. And then I talked to some older women. I talked to some younger women. And then I've got someone who's like my mom's age now, but I had to bounce around. And like, it's not cheap when you're going in person either. So. And
at the end of the day, we do have cultural differences too that make you want to have a therapist that's a person of color, or if you're, LGBTQ or whatever. So I think it's, really important if you're navigating mental health issues or relationship issues or whatever like that, you don't need to do it alone. So definitely check out BetterHelp. Again, that is betterhelp.com/corazon to get 10% off your first month. And shout out to BetterHelp for sponsoring the show.
Yeah. And shout out to all of you people out there that are doing some type of self-improvement and self-work. That's huge. That's what makes you a high value individual in today's society, right? It's like, if you're going out of your way, it's nice. It's good to, eat healthy and work out and stuff like that. It's nice to work on the outside, but to actually, self-evaluate and open up and kind of like, work through some things mentally is huge, because you're making yourself better, and in turn, you're making yourself better for the person you're going to be with, and that's just going to make everything is going to be better.
Hell yeah, y'all. We need to start healing some trauma so we can be good partners.
And learn how to communicate.
To others, but, be a good person to yourself, too.
Yeah, learn how to communicate.
I love it. All right, babe. This was a short and sweet one, but I think we got a lot accomplished with this episode. Again, thank y'all for, bearing with us as we are still continuing to navigate consistency with the show, upgrading our set. We're really excited to show you what the video component of this podcast is going to evolve into. So I just want to say thank you for sticking with us. Thank you again for the support when it comes to the reviews, sharing the podcast. It means the world, to just know that you guys care about what we're doing.
Hell yeah. I second that. And yeah, thank you guys so much with the patience. We have been working on the set a little bit, just kind of figuring out our vibe and how we want the layout to be. And then obviously with my work schedule, it's been a little bit hectic, but I think what we need to do is we're just going to have to stock up on a few episodes. Yeah. You told me in the beginning.
Batch content production is going to save us.
You told me in the beginning, but you kind of folks, she kind of has let this whole thing be up to me as far as when we do it. There's no pressure on me to do it or whatever. It's she can either do it or not do it. It's as long as I'm, she's always wanting to make sure that I want to film or whatever. So yeah. I take full responsibility in the fact that it's not as consistent as it needs to be, but I'm working on that, and we're going to work on that together. And,
yeah.
Hey, Go hit up BetterHelp. That way I don't have to work anymore.
Oh my gosh.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
But yeah, thank you so much, y'all. We're glad you're loving the show. Again,
Yeah.
keep those reviews coming. DM us, send us an email. We're so excited to continue to build this platform. And just thank you so much for tuning in.
Yep. Love you guys. All you guys stay strong out there no matter what you're going through. And we will see you on the next episode.
Adios.
Adios.